Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Crescent Sound podcast, where I give you a platform to express your struggle stories. You can either email me your stories on thecrescentsound@gmail.com and I present them on the podcast for you, or I can have you come on as a guest on the podcast and you can tell your story by yourself. Anyways, I'm your host, Luna, and let's begin with today's episode. Today's episode is all about new beginnings, the beginning of this podcast. Because of that, I just wanted it to be like an introductory session to just give a brief about what the Crescent Sound podcast is. Anyway, let me tell you about the Crescent Sound podcast. So, this podcast is all about sharing untold stories, and I wanted to start this podcast to give people a platform to talk about their experiences or struggles which they faced in their life. I wanted to do this because, number one, as I said, to give people a chance to talk about their experiences or struggles. And number two, for all the other people facing difficulties out there, they might feel isolated in their hardship, but I wanted this podcast to be a place where they can find a story that relates to them and comforts them. Now, I would like to talk about how you can approach me with a story that you would like to tell. There's two ways you can go about it. You can either email me at thecrescentsound@gmail.com or message me on the platforms that I'm available on, which will be mentioned in the description of this video. When you get in contact with me, you will first present your story to me, and I'll look over it and see whether it's appropriate or not for me to present on the podcast, after which you will be given two choices. Either you can come on the podcast yourself and tell your story, which has a few guidelines that I'll talk about shortly after, or you can give your story to me anonymously. I will structure it and you can review the script for the episode and let me know if you're okay with the way I have put it. If not, you can tell me the changes to make, I'll implement them, and then only afterwards will I put it on the podcast. For the guidelines that you have to follow to be on the podcast are you are required to be fluent in English, you are not allowed to ask me any personal questions, and any form of hateful language or profanity is strictly prohibited. That's all for that part, and now a little bit about me. Obviously, I'm going to be your host for this podcast, and my name is Luna. Of course, that's not my actual name, but for privacy's sake, I will be referring to myself as Luna throughout all the episodes. And I would also prefer if any of you that know me in real life would also refer to me as Luna and not my real name. Anyway, that's all you need to know about me, and I conclude this episode. I hope you got an insight as to what this podcast is all about, and I hope you would send in your stories to me. Thank you for watching this episode of The Crescent Sound. I hope you enjoyed and continue visiting this channel for more uploads. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to know immediately when I upload, and follow me on Instagram for updates on the coming episode for the Crescent Sound podcast.